on the Zero Hour. I'm Richard Eskow, and we are covering today all our ramifications of the McCutcheon hearing and money in politics and evolutionary biology and how that's affecting the political process. And now we're going to talk a little bit about some Democrats. And joining us again is our friend Katie Glueck from Politico. Katie, thanks so much for being with us.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
Well, thanks for coming back. I was kind of played a dirty trick on you last time, asking I think I asked you if Rand Paul was intelligent and if you liked Ted Cruz personally. So I promise not to throw those dirty ones at you anymore.
Oh, thank you. Hopefully I answered those questions safely. So.
Yeah, very, very. The word I would use is artfully.
Thank you.
So thanks for coming back.
Sure.
And listen, you wrote a couple pieces. I always enjoy reading your political coverage. You wrote a couple pieces that interested me a lot, and I wanted to chat with you about them. In one of them, you talked about Bill Clinton giving a talk in which he said that Democrats should, quote unquote, embrace even their more controversial policies and not back down from a fight.
That's right.
And tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, he, in an interview several weeks ago now, said that, as much as there are some kind of politically controversial issues out there, Democrats, especially when it is sort of suggesting that especially when it comes to health care, they should not shy away from kind of going to bat on those issues and sort of be clear on where the party is. And, of course, that's something that he demonstrated when he offered a very high-profile speech at the Democratic National Convention in 2012.
Okay, so and we'll pivot to your reporting in a minute. And I know you didn't conduct this interview. I think the only thing he mentioned in that interview was Obamacare. Did he mention any other unpopular policies?
At least from what we saw of that interview, speaking sort of generally about Democrats not shying away from a fight. But, of course, he did also point to that speech specifically in which he did talk about health care. And, of course, this comes as a lot of Democrats who are up for re-election this coming year, especially in redder states, are really trying to figure out what the best approach is for them to talk about a law that, they may support, they may stand by, but at the same time is more controversial in their states.
Well, I guess he must have been talking about Obamacare because, a lot of the other things that I personally wish Democrats would be stronger on, whether it's Social Security or Medicare or stimulus spending or whatever, are actually, most of them are pretty popular. So I didn't know where Bill was going here, but I found it relevant because of the piece you wrote about young Democrats.
Sure.
And Hillary Clinton, who, of course, is Bill's wife, as well as the leading contender. And I thought this was a really interesting piece because, you wrote your lead was they're ready for her, they're excited about her, they're planning their next career moves with her campaign in mind. So we're obviously talking about aspiring professional party people. And then you go on to say young Democrats have just one question. If Hillary Clinton runs for president, will she be ready to make room for them? So you talked to almost 20 current and former Democratic activists and operatives younger than 30. And so your finding was they're excited about Hillary. Is that right?
Absolutely. Lots of them are very excited about her. They are hopeful that she will run. Many also think that should she run, she's essentially going to be the only kind of really competitive game in town. And so they're hoping that they may be able to go work for her. But at the same time, for a variety of reasons that perhaps we'll get into, they are concerned that perhaps there wouldn't be as much room for them to work for her in a substantive way as there was in comparison to the Obama campaign, especially in 2008.
See, yeah, we definitely will get into that because I think this is really interesting dimension of all this. But before we do, I guess my question for you is, how do I put this? Why are they excited? And, I'm a Hillary skeptic myself, but I'm not asking it for that reason necessarily. I honestly don't know. Is the excitement just because she can win and they think she's a strong candidate, or is there something about Hillary personally that excites them?
Well, Well, of course, depends on whom you ask, but a lot of people will say that they are excited about the prospect of working for potentially a highly competitive female candidate who, would have clearly a fighting chance at making it to the White House. So there's part of, there's that piece of it. She's also extremely popular across the board. Perhaps her numbers have come down a bit since she left the State Department, but for her time in the Obama administration, poll after poll showed that generally she was quite popular, even perhaps across party lines. So you're seeing that continue to play out in some respects, and there are also those who do argue that she would be quite competitive in a general election should she run.
Okay, so that's a great answer. It makes perfect sense. And then we get to the part where they feel there might not be room for her. And this, I think, is a very interesting story because, first of all, in the 1992 election, which I remember being in town, being in Washington when that election was taking place, and then when Bill Clinton took office, really a lot of his key people were young, including, George Stephanopoulos was under 30, and, a lot of other younger people around that age, got their start with the Clinton administration, the first Clinton administration. Barack Obama's candidacy in 2008 certainly brought, your new folks up like David Plouffe and others. Age aside, it brought in a new group of people. And you did have some younger people like his speechwriter, John Favreau. But then Obama got elected and tapped a lot of the same Bill Clinton people to staff his administration. Hillary had used a lot of those 90s era Bill Clinton people to staff her campaign then, and of course infamously used Mark Penn to run it. We've seen stories saying that even the old operatives won't join her campaign if Penn's not running it. But that aside, are these young Democrats feeling, you have the super PACs that have been created for Hillary now, they're using a lot of the old 90s era Clinton folks. Do they feel that that Hillary isn't likely to make room for new talent in her team?
Well, I think whether she will or she won't is, certainly an open question at this point. We got to see if she runs first. But at the same time, what they would point to is that, kind of everything that you noted. If she runs, there are already at least two, really prominent super PACs that are laying the groundwork now. So that brings in, waves of people who would all, or many of whom would be looking to hop onto such a campaign. And in addition, you noted going back to 1992, but, even going back a step farther to her days in Arkansas, she has a whole sort of network of political relationships, that extend back decades. And, there are some people going as far back as their days in Arkansas all the way up through, her time at the State Department and now at the Clinton Foundation, some of whom, would also be looking to get perhaps onto such a campaign and, would have those relationships dating back far enough that some of these young people say, well, perhaps they would get kind of first pick at some of these top jobs. And so, it's a combination of sort of how early things are starting and the fact that, she does have such deep roots in politics that have sparked some to sort of say that perhaps this would be a highly crowded campaign and to kind of wonder, what upward mobility opportunities might look like, and even ahead of that, sort of how difficult it would be to hop onto such a campaign in the first place.
Well, and what kind of talent are we talking about? You talk to, roughly 20 folks. Are we talking general operatives? Are we talking a mix of like communications people and staff people and policy people? What kind of folks were they that you talked to?
It's really a range from, pretty young people who, maybe they did some time in 2012. Maybe they're going to be working some on midterms now, but, with like some experience, but are just kind of hoping that there would be the opportunity to have a full-time job in the 2016 cycle, to others who, maybe they were there in 2008, whether with her or with the president or elsewhere, and have been around the block a couple times at this point, and certainly that'll be the case in 2016, but are kind of wondering, about the extent to which there would be more substantive jobs available to them, especially if they don't have those kind of pre-existing ties to her world.
Well, last question. Did anybody tell you whether, let's say, if they came out of the 2012 Obama campaign or even 2008, whether an Obama track record was a plus or a minus with the Hillary people, in their opinion?
I do think if you take a look at kind of some of the people behind these two groups, Priorities USA and Ready for Hillary, that are gearing up to kind of be in place should she run, and of course Ready for Hillary is designed to encourage her to run, you actually do see a lot of high-profile Obama alums who have made the switch over to kind of encouraging her to get in at this point.
So, okay, that's a great, interesting story, Katie. Thanks so much for talking about it, because, I think if we don't keep bringing up young people and advancing them, where do we get the talent base of the future when the Hillary people all retire, which will, is presumably happen someday. So, Katie Glueck, reporter for Politico, as always, thanks so much for being with us on the Zero Hour.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm RJ Eskow, and we will be right back after this. Don't go away, because remember, this is the Zero Hour.